By age 12, 75% of the time is gone. And by age 18, 95% of the time you get with your kiddos is gone. So it's a wake up call. Be very aware of time. It flies by. And when you're present, when you're intentional, when you're focused on how do I create micro moments, how do I create these memories that are going to last a lifetime, then you play differently. Then all of a sudden, all the noise that is out there doesn't matter.
Dad, if you want to level up in your life, my next guest, Jeff Wickersham, is the podcast to listen to today. He has some fantastic advice. He has an organization called The Warrior Dad, where he helps dads like you and I level up in our life, in our career, and be better husbands as well as fathers. We talk about all things, both faith-related, health, fitness, and how we can improve upon all things in our life. And he's got some great advice for how we can make sure that our kids move forward as well. So this is a good one. I'm really proud and honored to have had Jeff. He's a beast in this space. And let us get right into that conversation with Jeff right now. Thanks.
I like to start my story, Ryan. I wear a pink wristband on my right forearm. About 10 and a half years ago, I lost my mom to breast cancer. So, watching the woman that brought me into this world take her last breath in front of me, that fragility of life, 2x4 smacked me upside the head. And it was like, okay, we get one trip around the sun. What kind of impact, what kind of dent, what kind of legacy do you want to leave? And I still remember, Ryan, the last deep conversation I had with my late mother. I asked her how she was feeling. She was going on hospice care. I live outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I was going down to University of Penn, taking her to a radiation treatment. And she said she was scared. She's scared she'd be forgotten. And I didn't know it then, right? It was kind of like that Steve Jobs famous Stanford commencement speech. Looking back, I can definitely connect the dots, but I didn't know then. But I think she subconsciously passed a torch to me, and it was like, okay, what kind of impact do you want to leave in your life? And I knew I didn't want to get to the end of my days and be like, man, I didn't leave an impact, specifically an impact on my family tree, my legacy, my kids, and that next generation. So now it's just, obviously a couple iterations to get where I'm at now, but now it's just eat, sleeping, and breathing. How do I get a little bit better today than I was yesterday?
I mean, not to start us off on a down note, and I'm truly sorry about your mother. And we're in that sad fraternity, right? Or in terms of, my father passed away almost 7 years ago. Same kind of thing, right?
Sorry.
Cancer. Yeah. And you look at what they accomplished in their life and how sad they were to be leaving so early and passing that on. I feel very similarly. There is more that we can do, both in being remembered by doing podcasts, by being able to memorialize these lessons that we can provide to others, but also there's a lot to do in this world. And we need to stand up and focus and make that dent in that universe, because nobody else will. And we have something to offer the world.
100% agree. And ironically, she passed right after Christmas, in between Christmas and New Year's. And I'll never forget, we didn't go out for New Year's that year because I wasn't in any mood to be around. I wanted to be around my two boys and my wife. And we ordered out and got some sushi and got fortune cookies. And I opened up a fortune cookie and I read it. And tears just started streaming down my face. And the fortune cookie read, "You only live once, but if you do it right, once is enough." And I was like, wow, that was, I got goosebumps talking about it right now. And it's like, you get one opportunity, do it right, and live and play on your toes, attack life. And it's so important and so powerful.
It's prophetic. You got that for the right reason.
100%.
What are some of the biggest challenges, Jeff, that you see dads facing in today's society?
Number one, vices. And I battled vices late teens, 20s, 30s. I just turned 50 a couple weeks ago. I grew up in that generation that Animal House was, all the rage. You had the hangover right after we got out, like things like that was just glamorized. And whether it was alcohol, porn, gambling, social media, I dealt with that. And I feel like they are such I like to call them kryptonite dust, where it's not going to kill you in the moment, but over time, you just continue down that route. It just makes you weaker as a man, as a leader, as a husband, and as a dad. So that would be number one, is like cutting away those things. And I gave up alcohol 3.5 years ago, profoundly changed my life. I had gone 28 years without more than a couple weeks of not having it in my system. And I'm just able to play at such a peak level personally and professionally, be so much more intentional, present. So number one is vices. Number two would be ego, right? Ego gets in the way, especially from a male perspective of like, wait, what do you think, I'm not good enough? And I used to be kind of closed off in that way, where now it's like, I'm always open to ideas and how do I get a little bit better today? So I'd say that would be number two. And then number three is commonly held beliefs around just life in general. Things we heard growing up. Could be financial. Well, money doesn't grow on trees. Well, actually it does, right? And that could limit your mindset. Or as a dad, just wait till your kids are teenagers. They won't want to hang out with you. I mean, just this past Friday night, I asked my oldest if he wanted to play Monopoly because he wasn't doing anything. Next thing you know, he said yes. And we had a family Monopoly game with teenagers, which I wasn't doing that. But I don't know if my dad was asking me to do those things, right, back then. And I had great parents. So those would be the three things: vices, our ego getting in the way, and then just kind of holding true to what the common narrative is out there in society.
Let's dive a little bit deeper on those. Those are profound, obviously. You know, the vices, you articulated a lot of them, right? Whether it's porn, whether it's always having a need to try to do more, better, not being, or feeling good with how things are. I feel those things all the time. And trying to break free of those, just scrolling on YouTube or Facebook at night rather than trying to do something more productive. That seems like it's obviously a real challenge.
It is. And like I said, I went away from alcohol 3.5 years ago. I mean, once my mom passed, I went out on my entrepreneurial journey. I left corporate America, opened up a gym, did that for about 3.5 years. And I'll never forget, Ryan, playing cards with the buddies in the neighborhood till 2 a.m. on a Friday night. I always told my wife it won't affect me. Next day was up, ready to go coach a 8 a.m. fitness class on a Saturday. I went in to kiss my wife and she asked me, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." She said, "How are you going to teach about health and wellness and you reek of alcohol?" And it was like one of those truth bomb moments of like, man, she's freaking right. Amazing. I needed to start cutting out some of these things. In addition, here's the other thing for dads. Think about the example you're setting for your kids. Do you want your kids to repeat those things? And that was one of the main catalysts of why I walked away from it. And I've been very open about porn. I've been open about gambling to my two sons because they need to be aware of it. I wasn't really aware of the pitfalls and how it can just kind of decrease your power. So the common path for most people in society is that path with those vices and those things. And I would say I leaned into vices because I numbed up the pain of not chasing my potential inside of me. We all have that itch on the back of our neck that we can do more, be more, have more. Now you can either sit in that and say, okay, I'm going to choose to move forward, or you can numb it up with those vices and get away from that voice that's calling out to you. So it is the number one thing that you can cut out to really be a catalyst for growth in your life.
Yeah, it's almost like you lean into those vices and the drinking because it's easier to do that than to take the step forward to better your life, your profession, whatever it is. That gets you in your uncomfortable zone. There's a book by Bruce Wilkinson, I believe. It's called the Dream Giver.
Okay.
It's very religious, biblically based, and that's what they talk about. Once you're ordinary, it's very difficult to step forward to get out of your comfort zone, and you have to leave some of those vices behind in order to take that step. So that was pretty much it, huh? When your wife gave you that truth bomb, you said, all right, drinking's over.
I mean, it took a little while after that to really absorb it and take it in. I took some breaks, like 90 to 100 days, 2 years prior to start the year because I was doing some David Goggins challenges and I wanted to make sure I was physically and mentally ready. And then finally it clicked where I said, I'm just going to take off a year and see what happens. And I didn't tell my wife until Valentine's Day because I was scared to commit, quite honestly. Yeah. And to say that I was going to do that, to put it out on social, to tell my immediate family. The number one thing that holds us back from doing that is we're a communal species, and you're going to feel like you're ostracized if you do that. And I finally said, enough is enough. I'm going to do that. And my wife said, well, I like you better when you don't drink. And we laugh about it now. But I got, some feedback from some others, like, what are you going to do when we hang out? What do you mean? What am I going to do? I'm going to still be there. I'm probably going to be a better person than when I was in the under the influence. So I did it for a year, and then I just saw my life exponentially grow, my presence with my sons, my wife, my patience, the ability, like you said, you lost your dad, I lost my mom. Like, I wear this pink wristband to remind me that every single day is a gift. And I don't want to waste one of those days that I have left being hungover and not being on my toes attacking life. So that's kind of my mindset around giving it up.
I dove into a book by Casey Means. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has talked a lot about her. It's called Good Energy.
Yep.
And it scared the heck out of me, Jeff. When you talk about how sugar in particular just lyses all of the capability out of your cells, it can be a completely detrimental thing to your body physically. When you're talking about drinking, obviously that's one, but when you're talking about nutrition and things like that as well, any insight? I've pretty much done my best to give up as much sugar as possible, and I've noticed a significant difference.
Yeah, I have that book. I haven't dove into it yet, but I do have it on the bookshelf.
Audible's
as a future.
a little bit easier to listen to.
There you go. I do have some free credits, so maybe that's the next one. Everything we do impacts everything else we do in life, whether it's alcohol, whether it's nutrition. If you want to play at a peak level, and I mentioned as we start out this podcast, like, I'm 50. I will tell you, Ryan, I'm lifting, running more, doing more things physically than I ever have in my life at 50.
Damn right.
I'm doing a Spartan Beast on Saturday. It's a half marathon, 30 obstacles. I did a ultra trail marathon last summer, 32 miles in the woods. But that means I've got to align everything else. It means I've got to cut alcohol. It means I got to dial in the nutrition as much as possible. It means I make sleep a game and making sure I'm at least getting 7 hours every single night. It means I'm exercising, moving my body every single day. All those things contribute to your ability to play at a peak level. And unfortunately, it takes hard work. It's painful. Many days you don't feel like doing it, but I'm telling you that the opportunity to play at a peak level personally, professionally is there. You just got to step forward. So definitely from a nutrition perspective, don't drink your calories. And I remember, I think it was like 2.5, 3 years ago, we were out at a pizza joint, my youngest son and myself and my dad and his girlfriend. And my youngest son got a water. Well, I got a birch beer. And I'm like, son of a gun, he got a water. And every so often I'll have a soda. But I said, I wonder how many grams of sugar in this. And we looked it up, and it was like 32 grams of sugar. And I said, well, what the heck does a gram mean? Like, they confuse you. Food companies don't want you to be healthy. Big Tobacco bought all the food companies when Big Tobacco got forced out. So my dad's girlfriend looked it up. 4 grams equals 1 teaspoon of sugar. So now I just divide everything by 4. That was 8 teaspoons of sugar with that little root beer that I was. So don't drink your calories is a major one, and make sure you get adequate protein, right? As we age, we lose muscle. We got to have protein in our diet. So I love that from a nutrition perspective. That's low hanging fruit. Don't drink your calories, and try as much as possible. I know Easter just passed. There was some birthday. There were some times where I had some cake and some sweets, but Hey, back on the horse and now attacking the week.
What role has faith played, Jeff, if at all, in kind of your role from when your mom passed to your absolute push to make that dent in the universe?
Yeah, so I'm faith-based. I pray in the morning. I pray at night. We say grace. I wouldn't say I'm an active Christian going to church, but I have that overall sense. I would say when my mom passed, I was pretty angry about what had happened. And I know, when my mom was going to see where we went to church, one of the pastors said, well, this is just God's plan of you passing. And she really got upset by it. Right. So I've I continue to practice it. I'm faith-based. I believe in a higher power, and that's how I kind of lay out my day. As far as how it plays on a daily basis, it's just every day. I mean, every day I step into gratitude. Just grateful that I'm upright and I get another opportunity to hug my boys, kiss my wife, and that's another opportunity to grow. So that's how I kind of correlate the two and flip the two to work together.
That's right. Yeah, makes sense. I've kind of been on a entry into the faith world over the past year or so, having never participated or prayed or anything like that prior to me turning basically 42 years old. So it's been very unique and very inspiring to kind of go on that journey and to see, all right, there's more to this. So, okay, that's great to know. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I would say I am an action taker more than anything. And unfortunately, sometimes I see from a religious perspective, people are very passive. They're just, oh, I'm going to pray on it. I'm like, God wants you to move forward and take action. Nothing's going to happen in your life unless you take action. So that's one of my pain points when I interact with dads that are like, hey, it's just, I got to pray. No, you got to take action. Nothing's going to change unless you act in this life. So that's just, if somebody's listening, they're like, man, I can't understand why I get there. And I pray about all, you got to take action based upon your prayers.
Yeah. Somewhat of a side note, I just recently heard about a book called The Prayer of Jabez. And there's just a very small piece in the Bible on 1 Corinthians, I think it's chapter 4, where it's just this little part where Jabez, who his name came about as a result of him causing his mother pain in childbirth. So you can imagine he was ostracized from the start, right? Your name means that you caused your mother pain. And he says these 4 small lines in the Bible, and he basically says, bless me, Father, expand my territory, guide me with your hand, and keep me free from evil and vices, ironically enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those 4 lines, I think, go to exactly what you just talked about in terms of don't just pray and thank and say, can you, give me some guidance, but bless me, guide me with your hand, expand my territory, which for me personally is now making me reach out to you, Jeff, over LinkedIn to say, let's talk, right? Let's be active. Let's cause action to be blessed and continue to move forward and expand the universe. So for what it's worth, that one's changed me in the last even just a couple of weeks.
There you go. Love it.
All right. One of the most successful, I would say, posts that you have on LinkedIn, and you've got a profound presence on LinkedIn. I definitely go and follow you there. You talk about the seasons of life. And Jeff, I feel this every single day. As I said, I've got a 3-year-old girl who's just the light of our life. She's a little princess, runs the whole house. We've got a 6-year-old boy who's in kindergarten, and then we have a 9-year-old boy who's in 3rd grade. I only have, if I'm lucky, 10 seasons left with my 9-year-old, if I'm lucky.
Yep.
And that's going to fly by. And you've talked about, and I hope you dive a little bit deeper into it, basically by the time our kids are 12 years old, we've spent 75% of the time we'll ever spend with them. That's horrifying to me. Can you talk to me a little bit more about the seasons of life and why we need to seize this moment now?
Yeah, the statistics, like you said, are pretty staggering. By age 12, 75% of the time is gone. And by age 18, 95% of the time you get with your kiddos is gone. So it's a wake-up call. I know you mentioned that post. It kind of went viral on LinkedIn because it was a company with a picture of me and my youngest, Carter, playing football. And we were sitting on the bench. He was a quarterback. I was the offensive coordinator. I had my arm around him. You can't see it because it's taken from the back. We were in tears because it was the last time I would ever coach him on that youth football field. And dads and moms, parents in general, just need to know that your time is limited. I know when you're drinking through that fire hose, and I spoke to a dad who had a 3-month-old and going in, and mom's doing one thing, dad's doing the other, and you're overwhelmed. But that moment, that season's going to be gone in an instant, and all of a sudden, you're going to wish for those days. I mean, my oldest just got his license 3.5 weeks ago, and now he doesn't need dad or mom to take him anywhere. So understanding, taking those statistics in, and then choosing to be present, choosing to be intentional, choosing to pour into your kids is such a powerful way to maximize that time you have, as well as incent and build those deep bonds that hopefully those statistics don't play for you. I personally like to believe that, hey, there's going to be a lot more times after my boys turn 18 than that 95% because I pour into them and I'm interested and we do things together. And I'll share a side story. Some of my high school buddies and buddies that are in my area, first day of March Madness on a Thursday, they go to a bar, and I used to do it for years with them. Last 5 years, I've said, no, I'm staying home with my boys. We get 3 TVs. They come home for school. We watch more Match. I'd rather do that because I know they're going to be in college in 3.5 years and won't be there to experience that day rather than hang out with my buddies. So be very aware of time. It flies by. And when you're present, when you're intentional, when you're focused on how do I create micro moments, how do I create these memories that are going to last a lifetime, then you play differently. Then all of a sudden, all the noise that is out there doesn't matter. Why? Because you're pouring into your kids. You're focused on them. And I can, Ryan, I can totally understand reading that and feeling it. I feel it every single day right now with 16 and 15 of just how can I help support them? How can I guide them? How can I lean in and be that dad that I want to be for them?
It can be so seductive, Jeff, to get in on the ground floor of a Fortune 500 company and start working your way up the ladder and see all these opportunities and then go to this conference and travel every week. And before you know it, you are a VP of a company, you're making great money, but your kids barely even know you. And from my perspective, I've watched so many of my colleagues do that same thing. And it just breaks my heart for them because I don't even think they realize or know it, that they're going to grow into their old age and be really remorseful. Hopefully that they've missed that part of their child's lives. So it can be such a challenge to break from those things and maybe even sometimes make a decision. You know what? This is a great job. I should really push for this. But at the same time, this is way more important. My wife, my kid, my kids.
100%. And I think, especially for dads, we're taught provide, build that career. Your kids don't care about money, finances, the things. They care about your presence. They care about your time with them. They care about when you answer a bid for their attention. That's one of the things that I definitely lean into is answer every bid for your attention. Make sure when your kids ask you to do something, even if you don't want to do it, you do it anyway, because eventually those bids will not be there. So I think we've been led to believe that we're going to find fulfillment in chasing a career or building a business. You don't find fulfillment there. You find fulfillment in your relationship with your wife and your marriage and the relationship with your kiddos, your legacy, that next generation.
It's so easy when you're listening to a podcast or you're watching a YouTube and your kid comes up and tugs on your leg to say, just wait a second, right? To have the presence of mind to put that down, get down to their level and engage with them, it means the world to them. So that's a really good point. You know, I'm not sure if you've ever followed John Lovell. He's got the Warrior Poet Society. So basically he's got a channel, Warrior Poet Society. He's got a book called The Warrior Poet. And he talks about you need to have, especially when we're talking about our boys in particular, and I'm curious of your thoughts on this, right? You need to have a boy who is empathetic, who appreciates how to treat a woman, who has the capability to be a poet. While at the same time, when that woman or that girl in school is being threatened by somebody else, has the ability to rise up, to bring potentially physical violence, and to be a warrior to protect that which he is both a poet of. Can you give me some appreciation, especially with your 2 boys, Jeff, of how you've tried to raise your boys to be both warriors and poets?
Yeah, I love that. And I think the warrior mentality, especially from how I lead the Warrior Dad community and brotherhood, we need to be attack oriented, but we also need to lean in from a love perspective. It's got to have both. And raising two boys, one of the things my wife and I have always said is you've got to stick up for others. Others might not be able to stick up. Make sure you do that, and be courteous, be kind, please, thank you, hold the door for people at the Y, right, when we're going in, and be that type of person. But also, hey, if somebody crosses the line, and I forget, I think it was about 2 months ago, I might have snapped at my wife in a moment of not too being proud of, and my oldest said, don't talk to my mom like that. And he stood up at the table, and my wife got teary-eyed, and later, I apologized to her and we connected, and she said, hey, we've done good that he challenged you in that moment. So
that is amazing.
Encouraging those type of things. And I did talk to him. I said, hey, I was proud of you for doing that. And that's what you need to do in those times. So I think, how do we raise, especially sons, in that manner? We need to do it ourselves. So much is taught, not necessarily taught. And if we're teaching one thing to our boys, but then living in incongruency and not doing that same thing, it's not going to be really taken in and truly learned by our sons specifically. So yeah, warrior mentality. Yes, you got to be on the attack, be active, action oriented, but you got to also lean into love. You got to, one of the other, Ryan, most proud things my wife and I have done in raising our two boys is, no matter who leaves the house, and this might get me emotional, we all find each other, we give each other a hug and say we love each other. And I still remember last spring, I took my oldest to a basketball practice, and he had 3 of his buddies in the back of my truck, and they left. And I said, Jackson, I love you. I said, I love you too, Dad. I know I wouldn't have done that to my dad. So changing that, leaning into love, you got to have the action. You got to be the alpha, but you also have to be empathetic. You also have to stand up for others and be a kind, virtue, value-based human being. And that's really what I'm after, and my wife is after, in raising our 2 boys.
My father was the same way. And it must have just been the generation, right? There was no affection. There was no hugs. And I made even though my father is my biggest mentor, I look up to him the most. I made a profound shift when I first had Bromley, our oldest kiddo, to say exactly that. I will say I love him. I will hug him no matter what. Every morning before they go to school, every morning when they come down, I kiss each one of them on the cheek. How'd you sleep? And then every night, I love you. And that makes a profound difference. And Paul, the thing that your child did, Jeff, in particular for you, in that story that you just shared, is profound. And I guarantee he has heard you say to him in years past, do not talk to my wife like that. And he flipped it. I mean, to me, that's got to be the most proud dad moment you could have, even though it was a challenging situation for you.
Yeah, 100%. And I love the story that you shared as far as leaning in, because I give my boys kisses on the head all the time, even as teenagers. And here's the thing. When we authentically lead ourselves, when we step into that best version of ourselves, when we go towards that North Star, which is our potential, and that's a North Star, it's not a destination, we'll never get there. You can also pay it forward to that next generation up. I hug and kiss my dad more than I ever have in my life. And we're more affectionate than we ever have. And he's learning things through my growth. He just brought back The Energy Bus by John Gordon, because I was like, you got to read this book. It's fantastic. So not only can we lead the generation down, we can also lead up when we step into the best version of ourselves. So it's pretty cool when that's happened.
Absolutely. What about our girls, though? Obviously, you don't have girls, but you coach dads with girls. Being a young girl in today's society has got to be horrendous. I can only imagine, between social media, the push with peers to be more sexualized, to do all of these things. It's got to be really profoundly challenging, where we want our boys to be warriors and poets. We want our girls to be confident, capable, and able to stand on their own 2 feet. What's your thought with girls?
Yeah, it's obviously, being a dad without girls, I have limited experience, but yes, I've had dads that I've coached that have all girls, 3 girls. And here's the thing I've learned in coaching dozens and dozens of dads is, kids are interested in growth. They're interested in being guided. They're interested in seeing, hey, if dad's doing this, maybe I can do that. And it's amazing to watch when, an example, and I'll share a short story. Alex Lapros, who wrote the foreword of my book, and he shares it in the foreword of the book. His oldest daughter, teacher, collapsed in class. The entire class ran to the principal's office, except for one person, his daughter. She stayed and held the teacher's hand and told her it was going to be okay. And he asked his daughter, why did you do that? And she said, somebody had to stay with the teacher and make sure she was okay. So it's like, it's those type of, and that comes from his authentic leadership of saying, hey, we stand up. And so differences, obviously, related to raising girls versus boys. But it's, again, hey, how do we be the best version of ourselves? How do we get away from social? How do we be more present? And I think that's kind of universal. Dads, moms, girls, boys. We do more of that. We lean in from a family perspective. We're all going to be on that growth trajectory, and we're all going to be deeply connected.
There's a lot of challenges being a father these days, and a lot of times you can kind of get into a funk, Jeff. It's really challenging. You get up in the morning, try to get your kids out the door, whether they're going to school or not. You try to help your wife. You go to work, grind all day at work, come home, you're exhausted, you put your kids to bed, and then that just circle repeats itself around and around. And it can get challenging to both be motivated and to want to do more around the family. So for dads who are in a funk, they want to do more. They have that itch that they want to scratch, like you've talked about. What's kind of your recommendation for dads to really kind of rise up and make some changes?
I always start with the bookends, how you wind down at the end of the night, the PM, get a great night's sleep. Ryan, I come from a place of being I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of guy, and I'd probably be, dead a lot sooner than I wanted to be if I didn't. But controlling the bookend, getting a great night's sleep, and then when you wake up, stacking wins and creating momentum in your life. And we can't control the chaos. We can't control what life throws at us, but you can control what you do right before you go to bed. And you can control what you do right when you wake up. And I've done 3 things every single morning for 7.5 straight years. I have not missed a day. And I drink a full glass of water when I wake up. I move my body a little bit and I meditate. And I don't care if I'm traveling for work or I'm on vacation. Those 3 things create forward momentum in my life, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I feel that I'm on my toes and attacking life by doing that immediately when I wake up. I don't hit the snooze button. I don't scroll social. I don't check text messages, emails. It's my time to start my day off on the right foot. So that consistency and that discipline, it creates that momentum. And then you have a basis to actually build that life personally and professionally that you want. So I focus on the bookends because that'll dial in your energy, it'll dial in your habits, and it'll give you that forward momentum. And it truly has changed my life, just controlling the bookends on a daily basis.
And I think another component too, which I'm sure you agree with, is when you're transitioning from work to home, right? That's kind of another component of the bookend of the day, right? So if you're at an office, that's great. A lot of people aren't. So having to transition between being a work dad versus being a father, just breaking that line to come in and be a different person when you come in is pretty important too, huh?
100%. And I've given recommendations of even if you are commuting from home, hey, 5 minutes before you get to the house, turn off the radio and sitting in silence and being present and saying, okay, it's work identity's gone. Now it's dad identity, husband identity. How am I going to lean into my kids? And just focusing on your breath and making that switch. If you work virtually like I do, it's shutting down the laptop, it's closing the office door, and it's saying, okay, when my boys come home at 2:30, 3:30, or pick them up from lifts today, football lifts at 4, when I do that, I'm not checking email. I'm going to ask them how their day was, and I'm going to be present with them because the other stuff can wait. So absolutely making that break and saying, all right, I choose to be dad and husband of the year as I walk into the door. It's going to change how you play. versus walking in and you're checking your phone and the kids are trying to grab at you and you barely kiss your, no, the other stuff can wait, right? Get it done. Use Parkinson's law of time, right? We're all most productive right before we go away on vacation. Why? Because we want to get everything wrapped up. We'll do that on a daily basis before you leave the office so you can spend that time with your kids, because to our point earlier, you only get 18 seasons with the kiddos.
That's right.
Yep.
It's so hard to do too. I mean, we're always listening to, or at least I am, always listening to podcasts, always trying to improve and learn and all of these things. And that can bleed into that wife time. So it's such a challenge.
Yeah. And that's where I love stacking like multiple things. Like I'll do a 20-minute sauna, which I did this morning after I lifted. Well, that 20-minute sauna, I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm taking some notes, and I'm stretching during that. So I'm basically getting 3 wins in 20 minutes that most people aren't doing. So drive time, if you're driving, I usually don't listen to the radio. I'm listening to podcasts, because that's a great time to be able, or if I go for a long run, I'm listening to an audiobook and I'm learning while I'm exercising. Like that's how I like to say in the Warrior Dad, we bend time. That's how we bend time to our will. So I love those pieces of growth.
Just a quick point on meditation, since you brought it up. You know, in a previous life, I was a captain and a paramedic with a fire department here in the Colorado area. When you are faced with a person who's called 911 because their parent has gone into cardiac arrest, and you're the paramedic that is responding to manage that incident, the anxiety is through the roof, right?
Yeah.
And I looked, even back then, 10, 15, 20 years ago, how can I center myself and be more poised, calm, composed, so that I can manage that incident in that fashion? Meditation was the key to all of that. Can you give us kind of 30 seconds on, one, how do you meditate? And two, why it is so important to do so, even if people hear this and think, oh, that's woo-woo, I'm too good for that.
And I used to think it was a bald monk on the side of a mountain, right? With snow coming down. And the other misnomer is meditation is when you quiet your mind completely. I still use guided meditation, and I've done it for 7.5 years. The key to meditation is not quieting the mind. The key to meditation is bringing the mind back to center and back to your breath. So I just focus on temperature of my breath going in through my nose, out through my nose. At Winders, I come back. I still have somebody guiding me. I use Insight Timer as my meditation app and just practice it. And then as we go through, and meditation sounds like, Ryan, has changed your life. It's changed my life. It's given me that mental stability not to go completely off the rails if something happens or somebody cuts me off in traffic. It's like, just take a breath and come back to center. So it gives you that mental control. And so many times we attack the physical side of things. Meditation is it's in that mental gym where you're getting reps, and is gonna definitely change your life for sure.
Yeah. Because after you do your meditation, you've done those reps. Now your mind is more poised to know when that monkey mind is going off somewhere else, thinking about something when you should be focusing on your kid that's pulling on your pant leg, right?
Right. Just 100%. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. That's fantastic. What can dads, Jeff, do to thrive financially in this environment? I mean, inflation's through the roof. We've got all kinds of different challenges that are coming. Raises aren't necessarily coming through their jobs as well, especially not keeping up with inflation. Anything we can do to, break out, make a little bit of extra cash to support our family?
I mean, there's lots of side hustles out there. I mean, Upwork, Fiverr, different things. If you've got a skill set, you could hustle, do a little side hustle there. I would also say, back to what we talked about originally, the vices. If you're spending money for alcohol, I mean, I look back, the amount of money I spent on alcohol, holy man, like it could change from that perspective. So I would look, hey, where can you tighten the budget a little bit? And that can give you some space. I cut the cord from the cable company years ago and probably saved $1,500 yearly on that process. So there are opportunities. You just gotta get creative, but also finding where your value is. And if you have some value, some side hustle abilities, Fiverr, Upwork, you can find some work and get a secondary kind of passive income coming in the door. So we are now so interconnected by the internet. There's absolutely some opportunities out there to help from a financial perspective.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and you think about your knowledge, my knowledge. Everybody has a bit of knowledge that they have significant more than the general population, right? So something like even just starting a YouTube channel,
Hmm.
passing along your knowledge to other people, there are ways to, even potentially monetize that.
Yeah, 100%.
You're obviously a fitness guy. We'll go back to that real quick if I can. Talk to me a little bit more about, obviously you're doing significant fitness activities, which is fantastic. But how does a dad who is basically sedentary 8 hours of the day, used to be fit, used to play football, used to do all those things, how can we jog back into a little bit more of a life of fitness, just baby steps to continue to incrementally improve that?
Yeah, and I would say it's crawl before you walk, walk before you run. If you haven't done anything for some time, and I used to own a gym for 3.5 years, and somebody'd come in 60 pounds overweight, and they were like, I want to exercise every day for a month. And I'm like, okay, when was the last time you exercised? 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you exercise for 60 minutes, you're going to be so sore, you're not going to be able to move. Your mind's just going to say, this is complete BS. I'm not doing it. So I always recommend like going for a 10-minute walk on a daily basis for a week. Then the next week, 15 minutes, and kind of build up. Do one push up, two push ups, however many push ups you can do right when you wake up in the morning. And those reps in the moment, mentally, your mind might say, this is ridiculous. You're doing one. You can only do one, but you do it for a week. And next thing you know, you can do two, five. And it's just that daily consistent effort. And I would say consistency has been one of my superpowers in my journey these last 10 years. And when you're consistent, you will build. And it's the daily work that matters. That builds the exponential results. It's not the grand slam bat flip walk-off home run that we see either on social, somebody building $1 million funnel and now, driving and doing, or six-pack abs in 6 minutes. It's consistency time and time again. And here's the other thing for dads. Get your kids to work out with you. Like I get asked by people, how are your boys in the gym 3 days before school at 5:30 for the past couple of years? And it's because I'm in there. And I asked them, I said, guys, you want a competitive edge in football and basketball? You want to go to the gym in the morning before school? Heck yeah, Dad, let's do it. Here we are, 2 years that we've been doing it. Getting your kids involved, all of a sudden, yeah, let's go for a family walk. COVID, terrible time in the world. One of the blessings was we started going for family walks. And we got away from our phones and we just moved our body. So any type of movement is good. Start small. Make it so easy, so laughable. I mean, if you can barely walk down the street, just walk down the street and back for an entire week. Then double it the next week and just incrementally move that body, because we are physical beings. We are meant to move. And the number one thing to fight father time is exercise. Peter Attia's got a great book, Outlive. He's big on socials. Like he literally, it's exercise is the number one thing you can do to increase how well you live for what they call health span, right? You've got a lifespan, increase that health span. Exercise is where it's at. So 100% all in on exercise. Plus, if you exercise in the morning, science says you get a 12-hour mood booster and focus booster. Your body produces Ritalin and Prozac without the side effects of taking a pill. So just move, start the process, and it will do you good.
I had a great podcast with a guy named Jesse Carstairs a couple weeks back, and he talked about something similar in terms of your kid, especially when they're younger, they look up to you, dad, as the superhero, the primary person for them to want to emulate and be. And eventually, sadly, they reach a certain age where they see that dad doesn't move much, doesn't exercise much, he's overweight, he can't lift things. And that superhero designation fades away in the mind of the child. So if you can do exactly what you just said, Jeff, get in the gym with them, show them that you are as active or more so than they are, they will continue to see you as the superhero that you absolutely are to move forward in that life with those kiddos.
Yeah, I love that. And that's one of the reasons why I've done, the Goggins challenge twice. I did a crazy Warrior Dad challenge a couple of years ago. I did the ultra trail marathon, and they saw me working out when they were really young, but it was funny. Short side story. I had a dad that I know, and they know my boys. And he said, the one day these guys are surpassing you. And I said, hold on, I am still the head lion. They're chasing me. They haven't got me in every area. My oldest son can squat more, but he can't bench more than me yet. So I'm still keeping the pace. So it's, and that's an incredible back and forth between your kiddos, is like pushing each other to be their best and to be on their toes and attacking life. And yeah, he gets here, but I get there, and we continue to grow together. And it's an amazing, amazing journey.
It's fantastic. Jeff, you've done quite a bit. You have a fantastic organization, which I want to hear more about. But at age 50, you are doing so many things in life right now. Jeff Wickersham, what drives you? What are your goals as you're looking 6 months, 2 years, 5 years ahead?
I've got that 30-year horizon. It's now 28 years, January 1st, 2053, of impacting, leading, guiding 1 million dads and elevating 2 million kiddos. That's my North Star, because Ryan, I'm not satisfied where society is headed. Anger, polarization, hatred, all these things that our kids are having to grow up in. I want to be that agent of change and helping other dads stepping into that best version of themselves, because it's not going to happen from a political, it needs to happen in the house and in our homes and in our families. And allowing other dads to use my strategies, my tools, my protocols. I've just seen it time and time again. All of a sudden, the whole family dynamic changes. All of a sudden, the energy changes. And then people literally are like, are you on drugs? And it's like, no, I'm doing the things I should be doing, or I should have been doing for many, many years. So that's my North Star, is 1 million dads, 2+ million kiddos. And that just fires me up every day, because it's such a big, hairy, audacious goal that I got to get up and I got to get on the attack and keep moving forward.
Damn right. I love it. And you're well on your way, and extremely motivational. Where can people find you?
So they can find me out at www.thewarriordad.com. Got a lot of great content out there. If they want to grab the Warrior Dad book, it is out on Amazon, hit bestseller status when it came out, #1 in fatherhood. So that gives you a lot of the strategies, tools, tactics, as well as some personal stories that I haven't shared with anybody but my closest family. And so I got very vulnerable in that book. Why? Because, listen, we're all on this journey together, and we all are trying our best, but we all have times where we don't do our best. So they can find the Warrior Dad book out on Amazon as well.
I'll, of course, link all that down below. You also have the Warrior Dad Experience, which is a 10-week challenge that you take dads through. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so 10-week immersive, where we're getting after it on a daily basis. So a couple of the highlights is, hey, I take you through weekly an hour coaching call where I give you the script that I've used in my life. And now I just had class 17 kickoff last, not this past Monday, the Monday before. So I've had 16 iterations. I've gotten better as I've gone along. So we've got daily accountability. We're checking in. You're a part of a brotherhood, a class. And I'd say that is one of the big things for dads. We're not surrounded by guys that are actually going after life. And it can just keep us stagnated and keep us kind of stuck in a rut. So being a part of a brotherhood, I'm in there doing the work you're doing every single day. And I'd say that's one of the differentiators is, hey, I'm in there and I'm getting after it. And then we just set weekly targets. We have weekly challenges, and we're leaning into the family. And it's been amazing to watch the journey.
That's fantastic. All right, I got 2 more questions for you. These are probably the more important ones for you. And then we'll close this out. I appreciate your time, sir. So Jeff, what is one thing, just one thing you think that a dad can do to transform his life in 2025 for the better?
Hug, kiss, tell your kids you love them more. Lean into love more. I think it's not as natural for a dad, but when we do it, I mean, that's what our kids want. They want our love, and they want to know that we're proud of them. And if we could lean in more from that, it would have such a profound impact on your relationship with your kids.
Last question. I call this my diamond advice. I ask this of all my guests, so
Okay.
I'm curious of your thoughts on this. Well, it's a hypothetical, but this one's real for you in particular. You've got your 2 boys very close in those seasons before they go off into college. You've taught them, obviously, Jeff, so much, so many lessons, but they've forgotten all of them. Every single lesson you've taught them, except for one piece of diamond advice that they can take with them. What would your one piece of advice be to your two boys as they move forward in life?
Two things you can control every single day: attitude, effort. And I've reinforced that many, many times with them, but that's from the late, great John Wooden. Attitude and effort. You can control that. You can control being positive. You can control working hard. You do that, you'll better be set up for success.
Jeff Wickersham, it's been an honor, sir. Thank you so much for taking the time.
You are quite welcome, Ryan. It was awesome.